Greetings, lore masters. Tonight, our chronicle covers a subject that sits at the very heart of the Dragonborn's existence, yet is rarely sung about by the bards in the taverns. We aren't talking about slaying the World Eater or negotiating peace treaties at High Hrothgar. No, we're talking about the cold, hard septims that grease the wheels of fate. We are exploring 15 proven ways to amass a fortune in the province of Skyrim, without losing your mind to the endless grind of chopping wood. Imagine standing on the steps of Dragon's Reach, the wind whipping through the Cloud District, your inventory absolutely bursting with enchanted weaponry and potions that glow with an unearthly light. You look at your coin purse and realise you have enough gold to buy Solitude 3 times over. That is the destination we are heading toward. Let's be honest, you probably wouldn't survive a trip to Coldharbour, or even a mild disagreement with a frost troll, without some serious enchanted gear and a bank account to fund it. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Go ahead and drop a comment below telling me where you are listening from and what time it is in your corner of the world. I always love seeing how far these stories travel. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The wind howls across the tundra, flattening the tall golden grass that surrounds Whiterun. It is here, in the shadow of the throat of the world, that our first lesson in economics begins. It doesn't start with a sword swing or a shout, but with a simple pastoral act, picking flowers. To the uninitiated, the Dragonborn crouching in a field plucking wheat looks like a humble farmer. But to those who understand the broken, beautiful alchemy of Skyrim, that adventurer is printing money faster than the East Empire Company ever could. We have to talk about the Giant's Toe. In the vast, interconnected web of Skyrim's economy, there is no commodity more bizarrely inflated than the severed toe of a giant. It is the gold standard of the alchemical world. While a novice alchemist might waste their time crushing blue mountain flowers and butterfly wings to make a potion worth a paltry 10 septims, the true entrepreneur knows that the path to riches is paved with wheat, creep cluster, and the toes of the mammoth herders. When you mix wheat and a giant's toe at an alchemy lab, perhaps the dusty table inside Arcadia's cauldron, surrounded by the smell of dried herbs and simmering elixirs, you create a potion of fortify health. But it is not just any potion. Because of the way the magical properties interact, the resulting mixture is exponentially more valuable than its components. The game's logic dictates that the more powerful the effect, the higher the gold value. And for some reason, buried deep in the arcane coding of the universe, or the creation engine if you prefer to break the fourth wall, the Giant's Toe applies a massive multiplier to the duration and magnitude of the Fortify Health effect. You aren't just making medicine, you are brewing liquid gold. Let's visualize the process. You're out on the plains, dodging the heavy tread of a mammoth. You spot a giant's camp in the distance, marked by the bonfire and the eerie painted markings on the stones. To get the goods, you have to engage. Maybe you snipe from a distance, or maybe you rush in with a warhammer. Once the earth stops shaking and the giant lies defeated, you loot the body. Amidst the gold coins and perhaps a stray wolf pelt, there it is, the toe. It's a gruesome trophy, really. One has to wonder how the Dragonborn carries 20 or 30 of these things around, without the smell alerting every guard from Markarth to Riften. It gives a whole new meaning to toe jam. Once you have your grisly prize, you combine it with wheat, found in almost every farm in the province, and perhaps some creep cluster, scraped from the volcanic soils of the hot springs south of Windhelm. The resulting sound of the mortar and pestle grinding is the sound of commerce. The potion you create doesn't just boost health, it carries a damaged stamina regen side effect, but the merchants don't care. They will pay hundreds, sometimes thousands of septims for a single bottle. This leads us to a fascinating piece of obscure lore that most adventurers overlook while they are busy getting rich. We treat alchemy as a game mechanic, but in the lore, it is a precise and dangerous science. The book Song of the Alchemists, which you can find in the Bard's College, actually laments the incredible difficulty of the craft. It describes alchemy as poetry, requiring intuition and years of study to understand the sublime symmetry of ingredients. Yet the Dragonborn walks in, mashes a toe into some wheat, and creates a masterpiece that baffles the masters. It suggests that our protagonist possesses an innate, perhaps divinely inspired understanding of the tonal architecture of matter, or maybe they just got lucky with the mixing. There is a fan theory that has circulated for years regarding this specific economy. The community often debates the dragonborn inflation theory. If you think about it, by flooding the market with these high-value, ultimately useless potions, who really needs their health fortified for 5 minutes while their stamina regen is damaged? The dragonborn is single-handedly devaluing the septim. Shopkeepers like Belethor or the Riverwood Trader give you their entire life savings for 3 bottles of sludge they can never resell. Fans speculate that the dragonborn isn't saving Skyrim's economy, but rather crashing it, forcing a redistribution of wealth where only the merchants with connections to the protagonist survive. It's a bit like modern day trading, but with more severed limbs and less electricity. But we are here to stop grinding and start earning, and the Giant's Toe Loop is the foundational step. It requires no perks to start, only the courage to face a giant, and let's not forget the sheer sensory satisfaction of it. Walking into a shop, the bell chiming above the door and dumping a sack full of glowing vials onto the counter. You watch the merchant's gold supply drop to 0, then you move to the next town. You become a travelling salesman of dubious miracles. The beauty of this method is the efficiency. You don't need to clear a dungeon. You don't need to solve a puzzle involving rotating animal pillars. You just need a map of giant camps and a scythe for the wheat. It transforms the terrifying giants from formidable foes into walking ATMs. Every time the ground shakes, you don't feel fear. You hear the chaotic jingle of loose change. Of course, one must address the morality of it. The giants are generally peaceful if left alone. They herd their mammoths, make their cheese, and stare at the moons. Is it right to slaughter them for their podiatry? The game doesn't judge you, but perhaps the lore does. In the book The Great Harbingers, it is mentioned that Ysgramor, the legendary hero of the Nords, collected the ears of elves as trophies. In a way, the dragonborn collecting toes is a twisted reflection of that ancient, brutal tradition. We aren't so different from the legends of old. We just have better profit margins. As you refine your route, running from the Secunda's Kiss giant camp to the Sleeping Tree camp, you realise that money in Skyrim is not a reward for heroism. It is a reward for knowledge, knowing that a creep cluster grows in the volcanic tundra, knowing that giants respawn, knowing that if you wear gear enchanted with Fortify Alchemy, the value of your potions skyrockets even further. It is a loop of exponential growth. You make potions to sell for gold, to buy ingredients to make better potions, to enchant gear to make even better potions. Eventually you reach a point where a single potion is worth more than the merchant's entire inventory, their clothes, and the shop itself. You have to buy their soul gems and spell tomes just to give them enough gold to buy one of your potions. It is a delightful absurdity. You are the wealthiest being in Tamriel, standing in a small wooden shop, haggling over a bottle of toe juice. But alchemy is messy work. Your hands are stained with reagents, your inventory is cluttered, and the giants are starting to look at you with personal vendettas. Perhaps you want a method that is cleaner, a method that relies on the arcane arts of enchanting rather than the mortar and pestle, a method that turns the cheapest, most useless iron weapon into an object of immense value. The smell of crushed herbs and the distant thud of giants fade as we move from the alchemist's table to the enchanter's arcane enchanter. It's a different kind of magic, cleaner, sharper, humming with the captured souls of the fallen. If alchemy is cooking, then enchanting is engineering. And in the economy of Skyrim, there is one schematic, one specific blueprint that outperforms all others in terms of sheer return on investment. We are talking about the Banish Daedra enchantment. Imagine you are deep in a dungeon, perhaps exploring a gloomy fort overrun by conjurers. You defeat a high-level mage, and on the table next to a gruesome sacrifice, you find a weapon, maybe an elven dagger or a steel sword that glows with a faint, ominous red aura. The description reads, Banish Daedra. To the novice, this seems like a situational tool. How often do you fight Atronachs, really? You might toss it aside or sell it for a quick buck. But that, my friends, would be a catastrophic financial error. Banish Daedra is the holy grail of mercantile enchanting. For reasons buried deep within the game's valuation algorithms, this specific effect adds an astronomical amount of gold value to any item it is applied to. It doesn't matter if the base weapon is a rusty iron dagger you forged from a scrap of metal you found in a barrel. Once you slap Banish on it, that piece of junk becomes a luxury item fit for a Jarl. The workflow is beautifully simple, almost industrial. You start at the blacksmith's forge. The heat of the coals warms your face as you hammer out iron daggers, dozens of them. The clang 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 of the hammer is the rhythm of your assembly line. Iron ingots are cheap, leather strips are practically free. The base cost of an iron dagger is negligible. Maybe 10 gold if you bought the materials, less if you mined them. Then you take your armload of dull grey blades to the arcane enchanter. You'll need soul gems, of course. Petty soul gems will do fine, the cheapest, most abundant souls in the game. You can fill them by hunting mud crabs, wolves, or slaughterfish. It's pest control that pays dividends. You slot the iron dagger, you select a petty soul gem, and then you select Banish. Suddenly, that 10 gold dagger is worth 2,000 gold. It feels like a heist. You haven't slain a dragon or retrieved a legendary artifact. You've just taken the fantasy equivalent of a butter knife and convinced the universe it's a priceless relic. You walk into War Maiden's in Whiterun, dump a dozen of these banishing daggers on Adrian Avenici, and watch her weep as she realises she can't afford even one of them without trading you her entire stock of ebony ingots. This leads us to a fascinating nugget of lore regarding the nature of enchanting itself. In the book Enchanting Primer, which many players gloss over, it's explained that enchanting is the act of binding a soul to a physical object to power a magical effect. It's a transaction, a life for a spell. The fact that Banish Daedra is so valuable implies something interesting about the world of Tamriel. It suggests that the fear of oblivion is so pervasive, so deeply rooted in the psyche of the people, that a weapon capable of sending a Daedra back to its home plane is considered the ultimate insurance policy. You aren't selling a weapon, you are selling peace of mind. There is a long-standing debate in the community about whether this exploit, and let's be honest, it feels like one, breaks the immersion of the heroic Dragonborn. Some fans argue that a true hero wouldn't flood the market with dangerous soul-powered weaponry just to buy a house in solitude. Others, however, point to the lore of the Telvanni wizards or the master enchanters of old, who cared little for economics and everything for power. If the Dragonborn is a master of the voice, why shouldn't they be a master of the market? The debate often touches on the iron dagger spam nerf. Veterans remember the early days of Skyrim, where smithing iron daggers was the fastest way to level up the smithing skill. Bethesda eventually patched that, making experience gain dependent on the item's value, but they didn't nerf the Banish enchantment. In fact, the patch inadvertently made the Banish strategy even more viable for leveling. Because the daggers are now worth so much, crafting and enchanting them power levels both your smithing and enchanting skills simultaneously. It's a synergy of skills that propels you toward godhood while filling your pockets. Let's talk about finding the enchantment, because that is the only hurdle. You can't just wish it into existence. You need to find a weapon that already has it, so you can destroy it at an enchanter to learn the spell. This is where the RNG, random number generation gods, come into play. You'll want to check blacksmiths once you hit around level 22. Before that, the enchantment is incredibly rare, so there is this sweet spot in the mid-game where you are frantically visiting every smith from Riften to Markarth, checking their inventory not for upgrades, but for that one specific text, Banish. Once you have it, you are set for life. The sensation of breaking that first Banish weapon is momentous. The item shatters, the magical energy swirls into you, and you know in that moment that you will never be poor again. You are now an arms dealer of the highest order. There is a grim humour to it as well. Imagine the bandits of Skyrim a few months after the Dragonborn starts this operation. Every 2-bit thug and highwayman has managed to get their hands on a shiny, enchanted iron dagger because the market is flooded with them. They try to rob you, brandishing the very weapon you crafted and sold to a merchant 3 weeks ago. It's a closed loop of violence and commerce. And let's not forget the sensory details of the enchanting room. The arcane enchanter is usually situated in the court, wizard's quarters, Farengar in Dragon's Reach or Wunferth in Windhelm. The room is always dimly lit, filled with the hum of magical resonance. The skull on the table watches you. The soul gems glow with a soft purple light. It's a solitary, quiet work. While the companions are out drinking and fighting, and the Thieves' Guild is sneaking through sewers, you're standing in a tower, quietly turning iron into gold, one soul at a time. The Banish enchantment also opens up a secondary economy, soul gem acquisition. To keep the factory running, you need souls. This encourages you to seek out the Black Star, Azura's Daedric artifact. If you corrupt it into the Black Star, it can hold human souls, grand souls, which are the most powerful. But for the Banish daggers, You don't even need that high quality. You just need volume. This turns every wolf attack on the road into a profit opportunity. A pack of 3 wolves isn't an annoyance. It's 3 petty soul gems filled, which equals 3 more expensive daggers. The world ceases to be a danger and becomes a resource node. Eventually, you might even feel a twinge of pity for the merchants. You walk in, clad in dragon plate armor, and they greet you with a weary, "Everything's for sale, my friend." You know they don't have the coin. They know they don't have the coin. You end up buying all their iron ingots, all their leather, and all their potions just to give them enough liquidity to buy one of your daggers. You're essentially bartering a magical nuke for a pile of scrap metal, and you still walk away richer. But perhaps you find the soot of the forge and the hum of the enchanter too tedious. Maybe you want to strip away the physical labour entirely. You don't want to hammer metal, you want to change the very fabric of reality. You want to look at a piece of iron ore and simply decide that it is gold. For the mage who prefers to work smarter, not harder, there is a spell that literally prints money. We leave the heat of the forge and the eerie glow of the enchanting table for something more elemental, more direct. We are stepping into the cool, intellectual domain of the School of Alteration. If enchanting is engineering, then transmute mineral ore is pure alchemy of the highest order, but without the messy ingredients. It is the Philosopher's Stone made manifest in a simple, novice-level spell tome. The spell is called Transmute. You won't find it sold by the high-ranking wizards at the College of Winterhold initially. It's hidden away, almost like a secret the economy wants to keep buried. You have to delve into Halted Stream Camp, a bandit stronghold just north of Whiterun. It's a fitting location, a mine filled with iron run by poachers. Inside, on a table near the boss, sits a dusty book. Picking it up changes the game forever. The mechanics are deceptively simple. You have a chunk of iron ore in your inventory. You cast the spell. A flash of golden light, a sound like shimmering chimes, and that iron ore becomes silver ore. Cast it again. Silver becomes gold. Let that sink in. You're turning the cheapest, most abundant metal in the province into the most valuable standard metal, simply by waving your hand. The loop is mesmerizing. You walk into a mine, ember shard or iron breaker, pickaxe in hand. You mine the iron. It's gritty work, the clink-clink of the pick echoing in the damp cave. But once your pockets are heavy with iron, you don't head to the smelter immediately. You stand there, perhaps in the quiet dark of the cave tunnel, and you begin the transmutation. Flash, iron to silver, flash, silver to gold. Your magicka bar drains, then refills. You wait, you cast. It's a rhythmic, almost meditative process. You are literally breathing value into the stones. Once you have a stack of gold ore, you smelt it into gold ingots. 2 ores make 1 ingot. Then you take those ingots to a forge and craft gold rings. This is where the profit multiplies. A gold ring requires 1 gold ingot. 1 ingot produces 2 rings. So from 2 pieces of iron ore, total value roughly 4 septims, you create 2 gold rings. Total value roughly 150 septims. That is a profit margin of over 3,000%. And just like the Banish daggers, crafting these rings power levels your smithing skill. Casting the spell power levels your alteration skill. You are growing stronger and richer with every flicker of magic. This leads us to a fascinating piece of lore regarding the nature of gold in Tamriel. In our world, gold is valuable because it is rare. But in a world where any novice wizard can turn iron into gold, why hasn't the economy collapsed? The book The Buying Game hints at the complexities of mercantile interactions, but it never explicitly addresses the transmute problem. Some lore enthusiasts speculate that the spell is actually quite difficult for the average mage to sustain, requiring a magicka pool that most commoners don't possess. The Dragonborn, being a hero of legend, makes it look easy. To a regular hedge wizard, transmuting enough gold to buy a loaf of bread might take a week of exhaustion. There is a popular community theory that the transmute spell is actually a lost art of the Aelids or the Dwemer, rediscovered by the bandits of Halted Stream Camp. The fact that it's found in a mine suggests the bandits were running a counterfeiting operation. They weren't just mining iron, they were minting their own currency. By clearing the camp, you aren't just stopping bandits, you're seizing the means of production for yourself. The sensory experience of this method is distinct. It's not the heat of the forge or the smell of herbs, it's the sound. The transmute spell has a very specific crystalline sound effect. After a while, that sound becomes Pavlovian. You hear the chime, and you feel the dopamine hit of wealth accumulation. It's a clean, magical sound, contrasting with the dirty, dangerous world you inhabit. You can do this anywhere. You can transmute while walking from Whiterun to Rorikstead. You can transmute while listening to the Greybeards lecture you on the way of the voice. Skyrim needs you, Dragonborn, they say. Just a second, Arngeir, you reply. I have 3 more pieces of iron to turn into rent money. This method also turns jewellery crafting into a major industry. Once you have the gold rings, you can enchant them. Remember the Fortify Sneak or Fortify Archery enchantments? Slap those on a gold ring and the value jumps again. You're creating high-end accessories from literal dirt. The implications for your character's roleplay are fun to explore. You aren't a warrior scavenging for scraps. You're a magical artisan. You arrive in a town, buy all the iron ore from the local smith, who probably thinks you're a bit dim for wanting the cheap stuff, and then return the next day to sell them exquisite gold jewellery. You're the alchemist of metal. However, there is a bottleneck. Magicka regeneration. In the early game, you cast once, then wait 20 seconds for your bar to refill. It teaches patience. Or it teaches you to use the wait function to instantly refill your reserves. It's a metagaming trick, sure, but time is money. As you get better gear, robes of alteration, hoods that boost magicka, the process speeds up. You become a machine gun of gold production. Flash, flash, flash. It's worth noting that this method creates clean money. It's not stolen. You didn't kill anyone for it, except maybe the bandits who had the book, but that was self-defense. You aren't poaching endangered dragons. You are simply rearranging the atomic structure of the universe to your benefit. It feels almost noble, but maybe nobility isn't your style. Maybe you find the slow, methodical process of transmutation a bit too lawful. Perhaps you prefer your gold to have a bit of blood on it, a bit of danger. There is an organisation in Skyrim that pays very well for a very specific set of skills. They don't care about market fluctuations or crafting loops. They care about one thing, sending souls to the void. We leave the ethical grey area of market manipulation and step directly into the shadows. The air grows colder, the music shifts to a low, ominous drone, and the scent of iron ore is replaced by the metallic tang of fresh blood. For some Dragonborn, money isn't made in the forge or the laboratory, it is made in the silence between heartbeats. We're talking about the Dark Brotherhood. Joining the Brotherhood is a commitment. You have to murder an old woman in an orphanage, who to be fair was arguably the most evil character in the game, sleep in a bed, and wake up in an abandoned shack with a masked assassin. It's not the typical job interview, but once you are in, the contracts start flowing, and the gold starts stacking. The economy of assassination is straightforward. You're given a name, a location, and often a bonus condition. Kill this person in a specific way, they say. Do it while they are sleeping, or drop a gargoyle on their head. Fulfilling these optional parameters isn't just for style points, it significantly increases your payout. The game rewards creativity and precision. Let's look at the numbers. The Radiant Quests, the endless randomly generated contracts you get from the Night Mother, pay out based on your level. At higher levels, a single simple kill can net you nearly 1,000 gold. It's fast work. Fast travel to the city, sneak into the house, 1 dagger strike, fast travel back. In terms of gold per hour, it rivals the best crafting loops, but with significantly more adrenaline. However, the true wealth of the Dark Brotherhood lies in its main storyline. As you ascend the ranks, silencing political rivals and loose ends, you eventually receive the ultimate contract, the Emperor of Tamriel, Titus Mead-Soon. The build-up to this mission is legendary. You infiltrate the Emperor's ship, the Kataria, moored in the Solitude Inlet. It's a massive vessel filled with Penitus Oculatus agents. You ghost through the corridors, bypassing guards, until you reach the Emperor's quarters. The interaction is surprisingly poignant. The Emperor accepts his fate with dignity. He asks only one favour, that you kill the man who ordered the hit. Whether you honour that request is up to you, but once the deed is done, you report back to Amand Motier. The payment for assassinating the Emperor is 20,000 gold. Let that number settle. 20,000 septims, in a single pouch. It is the largest single quest reward in the entire game. Most quests give you 500 or maybe 1,000 gold. This is a life-changing sum. It's enough to buy the Proudspire Manor in Solitude outright, though not the decorations because Skyrim real estate is brutal. But there is a catch, or rather, a hidden layer of profit. The payment is given to you in a location called Vollenrud. You pick up the gold, but you also have the opportunity to kill Motiera himself, fulfilling the Emperor's dying wish. Mutiara carries a significant amount of gems and valuables on his person, so you get the contract money and you get the loot from the contractor. It's a ruthless double dip that fits perfectly with the Brotherhood's philosophy. This storyline touches on a fascinating piece of obscure lore regarding the Dark Brotherhood's funding. In the book Sacred Witness, it is detailed just how deep the Brotherhood's influence runs. They aren't just a cult, they are a business. The Night Mother hears the prayers, but the gold keeps the sanctuary running. The fact that a member of the Elder Council can scrounge up 20,000 gold for a hit suggests that the Brotherhood is a key player in the political economy of the Empire. They are the ultimate problem solvers for the ultra-wealthy. The fan community has long debated the morality and logic of this questline. Why kill the Emperor when the Empire is the only thing stopping the Thalmor, they ask. But from an economic perspective, chaos is profitable. The destabilization of the Empire likely creates more contracts, more fear, and more gold for the listener. The Dragonborn isn't just an assassin, they are an agent of entropy. The sensory details of the Brotherhood quests are distinct. The sound of the Blade of Woe sheathing, the muffled footsteps of the shrouded boots, the way the screen tints red when you trigger a kill cam. It creates a rhythm of violence that is strangely hypnotic. You aren't grinding, you are performing. Each kill is a small, dark piece of art. And let's not forget the sanctuary itself. Initially, it's a damp cave near Falkreath, but later you move to the Dawnstar Sanctuary. With your earnings, perhaps a chunk of that 20,000 gold, you can renovate it. You add a torture chamber, which actually generates passive income from the victims, though it's gruesome, a master bedroom, and secret escape routes. It becomes a luxurious, if morbid, home base. The torture chamber is a particularly dark detail. You can interrogate the prisoners to find hidden treasures around Skyrim. It's a grim scavenger hunt. Tell me where the gold is, you demand, and they do. It adds another layer of treasure hunting to your repertoire, funded by pain. It's definitely not for the faint of heart, but we promised you ways to make money, not ways to be a saint. Furthermore, the Brotherhood provides you with Shadowmere. This legendary horse isn't just a mount, he's an indestructible tank. He can help you travel faster, carry more loot, indirectly by letting you fast travel while over-encumbered if you mount him, and even fight dragons. Having a reliable, immortal horse saves you the cost of constantly buying new horses when yours inevitably runs off a cliff or gets eaten by a saber cat. That's a savings of 1,000 gold per horse. The Dark Brotherhood path is for the player who wants their wealth to mean something. Every septim in your pocket has a face attached to it, a name, a story. You didn't just transmute iron, you altered the course of history. You hold the Emperor's ransom in your pocket, but perhaps you prefer to operate on the other side of the law, but without the bloodshed. You don't want to kill, you just want to borrow indefinitely. There is a guild in the sewers of Riften that understands the value of property is purely theoretical until it's in your pocket. They are the masters of the fence, the kings of the pickpocket, and the saviours of the stolen goods market. We descend now from the icy silence of assassination into the damp, bustling underbelly of Riften. The air here is thick with moisture and the smell of the Ratway sewers, but to the initiated it smells like opportunity. We are talking about the Thieves' Guild. While the Dark Brotherhood pays for death, the Thieves' Guild pays for the redistribution of property. And if you play your cards right, they offer the most sustainable, widespread economic network in Skyrim. The problem with stealing in Skyrim is the stolen tag. You swipe a diamond necklace from a Jarl's bedside table, but you can't sell it to a regular merchant. Belethor won't touch it. The blacksmith won't look at it. It's dead weight in your inventory. This is where the guild shines. They provide fences, specialised merchants who don't ask questions. Initially, you only have Tanelia in the Ragged Flagon. She's great, but her gold supply is limited, and running back to the sewers every time you pinch a goblet is tedious. The real money comes from restoring the guild to its former glory. This is a grind that many players skip, but it is the key to unlocking a province-wide criminal empire. To do this, you must complete Delvin and Vex jobs, small, Radiant theft quests in the major holds, Whiterun, Solitude, Windhelm, and Markarth. Once you complete 5 jobs in a specific city, you trigger a special reputation quest. Completing this quest establishes a guild foothold in that city. Why does this matter? Because each foothold adds a new fence to that city. Suddenly you don't have to go to Riften. You can sell your stolen goods to Malus Macius at the Hunning Brew Meadery near Whiterun. You can fence goods with Gulamai in Solitude. You are expanding your franchise. Furthermore, as you restore the guild, the gold cap of every fence increases. By the time you become the guildmaster, each fence carries 4,000 gold, and Tanilia, she can carry up to 5,000 if you have the perks. You have created a network of high-capital merchants who exist solely to launder your ill-gotten gains. Let's visualize the workflow. You're in Solitude. You sneak into the Blue Palace. You sweep the place clean. Silver platters, jeweled goblets, potions, loose gems. You walk out with 3,000 gold worth of contraband. Instead of hoarding it, you walk down to the Winking Skeever, find your contact, and liquidate the assets immediately. It turns theft from a novelty into a viable career. This restoration process also upgrades the Ragged Flagon itself. The dreary cistern transforms. New merchants move in, a blacksmith, an alchemist, a general trader. It becomes a one-stop shop criminal mall. You can sell your stolen armor, buy legitimate potions, and upgrade your gear all without seeing the sun. It is a hidden economy that rivals the legitimate markets above. There is a fascinating piece of lore hidden in the Guildmaster's tribute chest. Once you are the boss, a chest in front of the guild, Master's desk fills with random loot and gold periodically. It's passive income. The lore implication is that the other thieves are kicking up a percentage of their earnings to you. You are the Tony Soprano of Tamriel. The book Shadow Marks, written by Delvin Mallory, explains the symbols carved into doorframes across Skyrim. These marks tell you where the loot is, loot, where the danger is, danger, and which houses are empty, empty. Learning to read these marks, really looking for them, optimizes your burglary. You stop wasting time breaking into poor houses and focus on the whales. The community has long debated the Nightingale aspect of the guild. You eventually sell your soul, or promise your service, to the Daedric Prince Nocturnal in exchange for luck and power. Some players argue this is a bad deal. Eternal servitude for a few perks. But from an economic standpoint, the skeleton key, which you hold for a while, is invaluable. An unbreakable lockpick means you never fail a lock, never lose a pick, and can access any chest in the game instantly. Many players delay returning the key just to exploit this economic advantage. And let's talk about the armor. The Guildmaster's armor is not just stylish, it has enchantments that boost carry weight and prices. Prices are 20% better. That's a massive margin. When you combine this with the Mask of Clavica's Vial, which we will discuss later, and a high speech skill, you're practically robbing the merchants when you sell to them. The sensory experience of a thief is tactile. The click of the tumblers in a lock, the soft thwip of an arrow distracting a guard, the heavy clink of a coin purse being lifted from a belt. It's a quiet, tense way to make money. You are a ghost in the machine. One specific job type worth mentioning is the sweep job. You're tasked to steal specific valuable items from a house. These items often respawn or are generic enough that if you have already stolen them, you can just hand them over instantly. It becomes a quick turnover. Accept quest. Hand over item. Get paid. By the time you've fully restored the guild, you're no longer a petty crook. You're a crime lord. You have safe havens in every city. The guards look the other way because you can bribe them, a perk of guild membership. The entire province is your oyster, and you have the knife to shuck it. But even the best thief needs a target. You can steal cups and plates all day, but true wealth comes from gems, rare, glittering, flawless stones. And there is one specific quest, often dreaded by players, that turns the entire world into a diamond mine. It involves a floating crown and 24 elusive pink stones. We leave the sewers of Riften wiping the grime from our boots and turn our gaze toward a prize that is as legendary as it is infamous. We are talking about the Crown of Baronzire. Every adventurer knows the pain of finding an unusual gem inside a floating red box. It takes up space in your inventory. You can't drop it. You can't sell it. It just sits there, mocking you. But tonight, we are going to talk about why you should stop ignoring those stones and start hunting them with the fervour of a starving wolf. This quest, No Stone Unturned, is widely considered the most tedious fetch quest in Skyrim. You must find 24 of these stones scattered across the entire map, in Jarl's bedrooms, inside dungeons, on the shelves of the Archmage's quarters. Without a guide, or a mod that adds quest markers, It is a maddening needle in a haystack search. However, the reward for completing this labour of Hercules is not just a shiny hat. It is a passive effect called Prowler's Profit. And Prowler's Profit is, without exaggeration, the single most broken economic perk in the game. Once you have the perk, the game's loot tables for containers are rewritten. Every burial urn, every chest, every Draugr corpse that would normally contain a few gold coins or a garnet suddenly explodes with high-value gems. You open a simple wooden chest in a bandit camp, and instead of finding 12 gold and a minor stamina potion, you find 2 flawless diamonds, an emerald, 3 sapphires, and a flawless ruby. It turns every dungeon into a diamond mine. Let's visualize the change. Before Prowler's Profit, you might clear a Nordic ruin and walk away with 500 gold worth of loot. After Prowler's Profit, that same ruin will yield 5,000 to 10,000 gold in gems alone. You will actually run out of merchants to sell to. You will have so many flawless diamonds that you might start dropping them on the floor of your house, just for decoration because you can't liquidate them fast enough. This leads to a fascinating bit of lore regarding Queen Berenzia herself. She is one of the most controversial and colourful figures in Tamrielic history. The biography, The Real Berenzia, which comes in several volumes, some of which are censored in-game for explicitness, details her life of political intrigue, affairs with gods and mortals, and her ruthless pursuit of power. It is fitting that her crown grants the wearer obscene wealth. The perk reflects her character. She always found a way to profit, no matter the situation. By wearing her crown, metaphorically as the perk is permanent even if you don't wear the physical item, you inherit her Midas touch. There is a long-standing community debate about whether the quest is worth it. Critics argue that by the time you find all 24 stones, you have likely visited every major location in the game and are already rich. They say it's a win more mechanic, useful only when you don't need it. But proponents argue that if you prioritise this quest early, using a guide to snag the stones as you explore, it sets you up for the mid-game beautifully. It transforms the grinding phase of the game into a victory lap. The sensory shift is palpable. The sound of looting changes. You hear that specific clink of gems over and over again. Your inventory becomes a rainbow of precious stones. The sheer visual of opening your bag and seeing rows of flawless items is deeply satisfying to the hoarding instinct. And let's talk about the synergy with smithing. Remember those gold rings we made earlier? With Prowler's Profit, you now have an endless supply of gems to craft jeweled gold rings. A gold diamond ring is worth significantly more than a plain one. You're no longer just a goldsmith, you're a master jeweler. You can craft necklaces and rings that are worth thousands, leveling your smithing skill to 100 in record time. The quest also takes you to some interesting places you might otherwise skip. You have to buy the expensive home in Solitude, Proudspire Manor, to get 1 stone. You have to join the College of Winterhold. You have to join the Dark Brotherhood or destroy them to get into their sanctuary for another. It forces you to engage with almost every faction in the game. It is the ultimate tour of Skyrim with a payout that breaks the economy. There is a trick to the final stage of the quest. Once you have the 24 stones, you have to recover the crown itself from Tolvald's cave. This is a massive 3-tiered dungeon filled with falmer and glowing moss. It is a slog, but at the end, when you see the crown floating above the spectral remains, there is a sense of genuine accomplishment. You bring it back to Vex in the Thieves Guild and she restores it. The moment that notification pops up, Prowler's Profit added, you know the game has changed. Suddenly you aren't looting for survival, you're looting for sport. You open urns not because you need potion money, but just to see if you can beat your record of number of diamonds in one container. It also fundamentally changes how you view burial urns. In the early game, you ignore the small urns in Nordic ruins, because they usually just have bone meal or 2 gold. With Prowler's Profit, those tiny urns are jackpots. You start checking every single piece of pottery in the dungeon. The pacing of your dungeon crawl slows down, but your profit per minute skyrockets. Eventually, you become a dragon sitting on a hoard. You have chests in your house filled with thousands of gems that you will never sell, because the merchants simply don't have enough gold. You have transcended the economy. You don't need money anymore, you have hard assets. You are the De Beers of Skyrim. But perhaps you find the glitter of gems too frivolous. Maybe you prefer the weight of metal, heavy, solid, industrial metal. There is a civilization that vanished thousands of years ago, leaving behind tons of Scrap metal that is just waiting to be melted down. We're going to the ruins of the Dwemer to become the tycoons of the Bronze Age. The glitter of diamonds fades, replaced by the hiss of steam and the rhythmic ticking of gears. We are leaving the organic world of Nords and dragons and descending into the metallic bowels of the earth. We are entering the domain of the Dwemer, the Deep Elves. To the average adventurer, a Dwemer ruin is a death trap filled with spinning blades and farmer poison. To the savvy entrepreneur, however, it is a scrapyard of infinite potential. We are here to talk about the liquidation of ancient Dwemer scrap metal. If you have ever picked up a piece of bent Dwemer scrap metal or a large Dwemer plate metal, you might have noticed two things. They are incredibly heavy, and their gold value is relatively low. Most players leave them on the ground. This is a mistake of colossal proportions. These items are not junk, they're unrefined ingots disguised as clutter. The logic is simple but requires a specific piece of knowledge: smelting ratios. Not all Dwemer junk is created equal. You can't smelt a Dwemer bowl, for instance. But a bent Dwemer scrap metal? That 2-pound hunk of junk smelts down into 3 dwarven metal ingots. A large Dwemer strut? That yields 3 ingots as well. A solid Dwemer metal? That monster weighs 25 pounds, but it yields a staggering 5 ingots. Let's do the math. You raid a ruin like Mzulft or Nchuan-Zel. You bring a follower. Lydia is perfect for this. I am sworn to carry your burdens, she sighs, as you hand her another 50 pounds of scrap, and you strip the place bare. You don't just loot the chests, you loot the environment. You take the struts, the plates, the bent metal. You walk out of there carrying 400 pounds of scrap. You take this haul to a smelter. The transformation is magical. That pile of rusty, ancient garbage is melted down into hundreds of shiny, golden, dwarven metal ingots. You now have more raw material than the entire city of Markarth. But what do you do with 300 dwarven ingots? You don't sell them raw, that's for amateurs. You buy some iron ingots, which are dirt cheap, and you go to the forge. You craft dwarven bows. A dwarven bow requires 2 dwarven metal ingots and 1 iron ingot. It is the most efficient smelting to crafting ratio in the game. With your haul from one ruin, you can craft 150 dwarven bows. The value of these bows is substantial. You sell them, or better yet, you enchant them. Remember our banish strategy? Or paralyze, and then sell them. This creates a self-sustaining loop. You delve into a ruin, which is fun, adventurous gameplay, and you come out with the materials to power level your smithing, enchanting, and speech skills while filling your bank account. This leads us to a fascinating piece of lore regarding the Dwemer metal itself. Scholars in Tamriel have been trying to replicate Dwemer metal for eras and have failed. It is heavily implied that the metal isn't just bronze, it's a tonal alloy, perhaps imbued with sound or soul energy during its creation. By melting it down, the Dragonborn is technically destroying priceless archaeological artifacts to make generic bows. It's cultural vandalism for profit. The court wizard of Markarth, Calselmo, is obsessed with Dwemer research. He will actually send you letters asking to buy Dwemer artifacts you find. It's a nice little side hustle, but Calselmo pays a pittance compared to the bowcrafting method. There is a popular fan theory that the Dwemer didn't disappear. They became the skin of the Numidium, the brass god. If that's true, then by smelting their metal, are we melting down the Dwemer themselves? It's a dark thought to entertain while you're hammering out your 50th bow of the day. The sensory experience of a Dwemer ruin is unique. The air is always stale. The soundscape is dominated by the clank-clank of the spider workers and the hiss of steam pipes. It feels like walking through a factory that has been running on autopilot for 1,000 years, and the looting process is heavy. You feel the weight of the metal. You walk slower. You have to manage your inventory carefully. Do I drop this potion of minor healing to make room for one more solid Dwemer metal? The answer is always yes. One specific location, the Dwarven Storehouse outside Mzulft, is a gold mine. It's a small standalone building that is absolutely packed with smeltable scrap. You don't even have to fight through a dungeon. You just pick the lock, walk in, and loot. It respawns every 10 to 30 days. It is essentially a free shipment of metal delivered to you by the game engine. The Dwarven Bow economy also funds your training. You sell the bows to blacksmiths to buy their training sessions. You pay Yorland Greymane to teach you smithing, then sell him the bows you made to get your money back. It's a circular economy, where you extract knowledge and gold from the system simultaneously. There is a satisfying thunk when you drop a stack of dwarven ingots. They look like heavy gold bars. Stacking them in your house makes you look like a bullion reserve. Eventually you start to see the world differently. You don't see ruins, you see resources. Markarth becomes your favourite city, not for the architecture, but because the entire place is basically made of money waiting to be smelted. You start eyeing the museum guards, wondering if they'd notice if a few struts went missing. But all this smelting and crafting is hard work. It's lonely work. Sometimes you want to come home to a warm meal and a pile of gold that you didn't have to lift a finger to earn. You want a partner, a spouse, someone who understands that while you're out saving the world, someone needs to be manning the storefront. We leave the clanking machinery of the Dwemer ruins and the solitude of the forge for something far more domestic, yet surprisingly profitable. We're talking about marriage. In Skyrim, love isn't just a battlefield, it's a business partnership. While you're out there shouting at dragons and raiding tombs, your spouse isn't just sitting at home staring at the wall. If you choose correctly, they are running a thriving general store from your living room. The mechanics of spousal commerce are one of the best passive income streams in the game. Once you marry an eligible NPC, by wearing the Amulet of Mara and finding someone who is interested, they move into your house. Almost immediately they open a shop. I've decided to open a store, they'll tell you. It's a good way to make some extra coin. Extra coin is an understatement. Every day, in-game time, your spouse generates a profit of 100 gold. This money accumulates in their inventory. You can leave for a month-long adventure, come back and ask, has the store made any money? And they will hand you a lump sum of 3,000 gold. It's not infinite wealth, but it is steady, reliable, and completely effort-free. It covers your daily expenses, arrows, potions, bribes, without you lifting a finger. But the real value isn't the 100 gold stipend. It's the fact that your spouse acts as a merchant with a regenerating gold supply. You can sell your loot directly to them. Imagine coming home to Breezehome in Whiterun at 2 AM, over-encumbered with dragon bones and enchanted swords. The shops in town are closed, Belethor is asleep, but your spouse is there. You wake them up, gently of course, open their shop inventory and offload your gear. They buy your junk, giving you instant liquidity. It effectively turns your home into a 24-hour pawn shop. This leads to the strategic choice of who to marry. While love is blind, profit has 20/20 vision. Some spouses are simply better for business. For example, if you marry a blacksmith like Balamund in Riften or Halbarn Iron Fur, they continue to sell blacksmithing supplies. This means you have a merchant in your house who sells rare ingots and ores. You can buy their materials, craft items, and sell them back to them. However, the community favourite for pure utility is often Camilla Valerius or Isolde. Isolde in particular has a merchant spirit. She talks about buying the bannered mare one day. Marrying her feels like investing in a promising startup. There is a fascinating piece of obscure lore regarding the marriage ceremony itself. It takes place at the Temple of Mara in Riften. Riften is a city of thieves and corruption. The fact that the goddess of love has her main temple in the seediest city in Skyrim is a beautiful irony. It suggests that love is most needed where it is least likely to thrive. Or perhaps it suggests that even love in Skyrim comes with a price tag. The priest, Maramal, charges you a small fee, but the amulet of Mara itself can be bought or found. It's a low-investment, high-yield asset. The lover's comfort bonus shouldn't be ignored either. Sleeping in the same house as your spouse grants you a 15% bonus to all skill learning for 8 hours. This accelerates your leveling in speech, smithing and alchemy, which in turn accelerates your money-making. It's a synergistic relationship. There are some funny fan theories about what exactly your spouse is selling. They never leave the house. So, where are they getting the goods? Are they dropshipping? Are they selling your old junk that you left in the chest? The most amusing theory is that they are selling your fame. Buy a sweet roll baked by the Dragonborn's husband. It trades on your reputation. The sensory details of this domestic economy are cozy. The fire is crackling. Your spouse greets you with, "Hello, my love. Back from some adventure, I bet." It's a grounding moment. You hand over a pile of bloody armour, they hand you a sack of gold. It's a strange love language, but it works. And let's not forget the home-cooked meal. Once a day, your spouse can give you a home-cooked meal, which regenerates health, stamina, and magicka. It's a free, high-quality potion. In survival mode, this is even more valuable. It's the fuel that keeps the money-making machine, you, running. You can also move your spouse to different homes. If you build a Hearthfire Manor, which we will discuss next, having a spouse there is essential for managing the property. They can buy raw materials for you, lumber, stone, clay, saving you the trip to the mills. They become your estate manager. There is a dark side, of course. If your spouse dies, the shop closes, the income stops. This adds a layer of anxiety. You have to protect your investment. When vampires attack the town, you don't just defend the citizens, you defend your revenue stream. Get away from my wife. She's carrying 5,000 gold and my quarterly earnings. Eventually you realize that the Dragonborn is the breadwinner, but the spouse is the banker. You are the volatile asset. They are the bonds. It balances your portfolio. But maybe a single shop isn't enough for you. Maybe you want to scale up. You don't just want a merchant, you want an industry. You want to own the land, grow the crops, and automate the production of wealth on a massive scale. For that, we need to leave the city and head to the fertile plains of Rorikstead. We are going to become farmers. We leave the comfort of the marital home and step out onto the fertile, sun-drenched soil of the Whiterun Plains. The wind ripples through the grass, and the distant bleat of a goat sets the scene. We are done with small-time trading. We are done with dungeon crawling for scraps. We are entering the age of industrial agriculture. We are talking about Goldenhills Plantation. Introduced in the Creation Club and integrated into the Anniversary Edition, Goldenhills Plantation is, without a doubt, the single most potent passive income generator in Skyrim. It isn't just a house, it's a fully functional business simulator dropped into the middle of an RPG. The plantation is located east of Rorikstead. Initially, it's a ghost story, literally. You have to exorcise the spirits of the previous family. It's a tragic tale of a poisoned son and a misunderstanding between husband and wife, ending in murder-suicide. It's grim, classic Skyrim storytelling. But once you put their souls to rest, the deed to the land is yours. Now the real work begins. You can plant crops, but you don't want to plant potatoes or cabbages. Those are for peasants. You're a capitalist. You want to plant money. The optimal strategy is to plant blisterwort. Why blisterwort? Because the farm's profit is calculated based on the value of the crops you grow. Blisterwort is one of the highest value growable fungi in the game. You plant it in every available soil plot, 44 slots in total once the farm is fully upgraded. But you don't have to harvest it yourself. That's the beauty of it. You hire a steward, maybe Fendel or Sven, someone you don't mind leaving behind, and you hire farmhands. You pay them a wage, you build a bunkhouse, and then the farm runs itself. Every day the farm generates profits. The harvested ingredients are deposited into a pantry in the basement, and the gold profit is deposited into a safe in the master bedroom. Let's look at the numbers. A fully optimized Goldenhills plantation planting blisterwort or dragon's tongue can generate upwards of 1,000 gold per day in passive income. That accumulates. If you go away for a week to solve the civil war, you come back to a safe bursting with 7,000 to 10,000 gold. But the gold is just the tip of the iceberg. The ingredients are the real prize. The pantry fills up with hundreds of blisterwort mushrooms. You take these, combine them with other ingredients, perhaps wheat you grew in a few slots, or the giant's toes you've been collecting, and you create potions. This creates a vertical integration of your alchemy business. You own the land, you grow the raw materials, you manufacture the finished product. You're no longer scavenging, you're the CEO of a pharmaceutical empire. There is a fascinating nuance to the steward mechanic here. Your steward matters. If you pick a follower who is a skilled combatant, they can defend the farm from occasional dragon attacks or giant incursions. But mostly, they just stand on the porch, looking out over your fields, supervising the labour. It's a peaceful retirement for an old adventuring buddy. The lore implications of Goldenhills are interesting. Farming in Skyrim is tough. The soil is often frozen, the growing season is short. Yet, Goldenhills is incredibly productive. The soil here is rumoured to be blessed or perhaps heated by underground volcanic activity, similar to the tundra hot springs. It explains why the previous owner was so desperate to hold on to it, even as his family fell apart. The land itself is a treasure. The sensory experience of the plantation is distinct from the rest of the game. It's the sound of the windmill creaking, the buzz of bees from the apiary, which also produces honey and honeycomb or alchemy ingredients. The visual of rows and rows of glowing mushrooms or vibrant flowers. It's orderly, it's civilized. It stands in stark contrast to the chaotic wilderness just over the hill. You can also raise livestock, cows for milk, which can be turned into butter for cooking, chickens for eggs, and goats. It adds a layer of Harvest Moon or Stardew Valley to the game. You find yourself caring more about your cow's well-being than the return of Alduin. Save the world? Maybe later. Bessie needs milking. There is a popular strategy involving the Fortify Health Garden. You plant wheat and Blue Mountain flower. These are the two ingredients for a standard Fortify Health potion, minus the giant's toe. They grow in massive quantities. Every time you visit the farm, you harvest hundreds of them, mix them at the alchemy table in the farmhouse and sell the potions. It's a lower value per unit than Blisterwort, but the volume is higher and the ingredients are easier to sell since merchants always want health potions. The dragon attack risk is real though. There is nothing more stressful than fast travelling to your farm to collect your profits, only to see an ancient dragon strafing your livelihood. You fight harder for that farm than you do for High Hrothgar. You're defending your assets. Eventually Goldenhills becomes your true home. Breezehome is a condo. Goldenhills is an estate. You display your armour in the master bedroom. You count your gold in the study. You watch the sun set over the fields that you own. It provides a sense of ownership and permanence that few other locations offers. And let's not forget the library. You can build a library tower. It's the perfect place to store the books you've collected. Sitting there, reading the lusty Argonian Maid while your farm earns you 1,000 gold a day is the peak of dragonborn luxury. But perhaps you're tired of playing by the rules. Farming is honest work, but it's slow. Maybe you want to peek behind the curtain of reality. Maybe you want to access the inventory of a merchant without actually paying them. There is a glitch, a beautiful, persistent flaw in the world that allows you to do just that. We are going to rob the Khajiit caravans, but not with a sword, with a crouch and a stare at the ground. We leave the sun-drenched, honest fields of Goldenhills Plantation and step into the twilight zone of Skyrim's economy. Until now, every method we've discussed, alchemy, enchanting, farming, has been a legitimate part of the world's logic. But there is a path to wealth that requires you to look through the world, to see the seams in the fabric of reality. We're talking about the invisible chests of the Khajiit caravans. To the uninitiated, this sounds like madness. Go to Dawnstar, you say. Walk to the iron mine, crouch by a specific rock and stare at the ground. It sounds like a prank, but to the veteran, this is the ritual of the hidden hoard. Here is the reality behind the magic. Every merchant in Skyrim needs a container to store their goods. Usually these chests are buried deep underground or hidden inside walls, far beyond the player's reach. The game engine needs a physical place to put the swords, potions, and soul gems you see in the shop menu. However, for the nomadic Khajiit caravans, the developers, perhaps in a rush, or perhaps guided by the trickster god Lorcan, place these chests just a little too close to the surface. The most famous of these is the Dawnstar chest. You fast travel to Dawnstar, you walk past the Moody Miners and the Jarl's Hall, you find the Ironbreaker Mine. Just to the left of the entrance, there is a small cluster of rocks and a bush. You crouch. You wiggle your cursor around until suddenly the prompt appears. Search chest. There is no chest visible. You're searching the air, you're searching the rock. But when you press the button, you're looking directly into the inventory of Akari's caravan. It is a treasure trove. Grand soul gems, enchanted weaponry, ingots, potions, and usually around 750 gold. You can take it all. You're stripping the caravan of its stock without them even knowing. And the best part, it's not marked as stolen. The game doesn't register this as theft because you aren't picking a lock or pickpocketing a person. You're simply finding items that the universe forgot to hide. There are others. Outside Solitude, near the stone archway where the caravan sets up camp, there is another invisible chest hidden in the foliage. Outside Markarth, behind a stone wall near the bridge, lies a third. These three chests form the Khajiit triangle of free loot. The economic loop here is devastatingly effective. You loot the Dawnstar chest. Then, you wait for the caravan to arrive, or use the wait function for 48 hours to reset the merchant's inventory. You speak to Akari, browse her wares, which you just stole so she has nothing, or she is restocked, and then check the chest again. It's an infinite fountain of free goods. This leads us to a fascinating, albeit meta, piece of lore. The Khajiit have a deep spiritual connection to the moons Massa and Secunda. Their morphology, whether they are born as a housecat-like Alfiq or a hulking Senchi, depends on the lunar phases. This is called the lunar lattice. Some fans have jokingly theorized that the invisible chests are actually a manifestation of this lunar magic. The Khajiit store their goods in a moon pocket, a pocket dimension accessed through ritual, or in our case a cursor glitch. The Dragonborn, being a being of higher power, can perceive these dimensional rifts. In the community, this exploit is treated with a sort of reverence. It's not seen as cheating, it's seen as a rite of passage. You aren't a true Skyrim veteran until you've successfully located the invisible chest in Dawnstar without a guide. It represents a mastery over the game itself, transcending the role of the character and entering the role of the player. The sensory experience is one of illicit thrill. You're crouching in the snow, the wind howling around you. A guard walks by saying, "No lollygagging." He has no idea that you are currently pulling a Daedric warhammer out of a pebble. It feels like you are getting away with something massive. It's the ultimate bank error in your favour. The loot from these chests is particularly useful for enchanting. You get dozens of filled soul gems and enchanted items to disenchant. It jumpstarts your magical career without costing a single septim. And since the Khajiit often carry rare ingredients like Daedra hearts or void salts, it feeds into your alchemy business as well. There is a tragic irony to the Khajiit caravans. They are barred from entering the cities. Skyrim belongs to the Nords, the guards say. The Khajiit are forced to camp outside the walls, braving the cold and the dragons. They are the outcasts. Yet they possess these magical, invisible vaults of wealth. By looting them, are we adding to their misfortune? Or are we simply participating in the chaotic, uncaring economy of Tamriel? The loop can be refined further. You can use the save punch reload trick. You stand in front of the merchant, you save the game, you punch them in the face, aggroing them, then you immediately reload the save. For some reason, this resets their inventory instantly. It saves you the 48-hour wait time. It's violent, it's absurd, and it works. You become a time-travelling thug who punches cats to refresh the stock market. You can also use these chests as a disposal system. If you have items you can't sell because no merchant has enough gold, you can dump them into the chest. It's like a reverse donation, though usually the chest resets and deletes them, so it's more of a trash can. As you exploit these chests, you might start to feel like a phantom. You appear in Dawnstar, extract wealth from the earth, and vanish. You're the ghost of the economy. You don't participate in supply and demand, you bypass it entirely. But perhaps you crave a more visceral challenge. Staring at rocks is profitable, but it lacks glory. You're the Dragonborn after all. You should be hunting apex predators. There is a market for bones and scales that is always hungry, and the supply is flying right over your head. We're going to look up, draw our bows, and become poachers of the highest order. We leave the crouching, hidden world of invisible chests and turn our eyes to the sky. The wind picks up, carrying the scent of ozone and sulphur. A shadow sweeps across the ground, moving faster than any cloud. In the early days of your adventure, this shadow brought terror. You would hide behind a rock, praying the beast wouldn't see you. But now you check your quiver, you unsheath your weapon, and you smile. You aren't looking at a predator, you're looking at a flying sack of gold. We're talking about the lucrative, heavy and bloody business of dragon poaching. To the average citizen of Tamriel, the return of the dragons is the apocalypse. To the economically minded Dragonborn, it is a resource boom. Dragons drop two specific items that are the bedrock of the high-end crafting economy: dragon bones and dragon scales. Let's look at the ledger. A single dragon bone weighs 15 pounds and has a base value of 500 gold. A dragon scale weighs 10 pounds and is worth 250 gold. A typical dragon drops around 3 bones and 3 scales. That is a raw material haul of roughly 2,250 gold per kill, not counting the gold coins and levelled gear they carry in their pockets, wherever a dragon keeps pockets. The math changes the dynamic of the encounter entirely. You hear the roar, that iconic tearing sound that rips through the audio channels, and you don't think danger, you think inventory management, because the real boss fight isn't Alduin, it's the carry weight limit. The hunt itself is a ritual of violence and commerce. You use the Dragon Wren shout. This isn't just a combat maneuver, it's a grounding order. You are forcing the asset to land so you can harvest it. The dragon crashes into the earth, ploughing a trench through the soil. Dirt flies, trees shatter. It's a visceral, heavy moment. You move in. The fight is messy, fire breath, biting jaws, the thrashing tail. But once the soul is absorbed, that swirl of wind and light leaving the skeleton behind, you're left with the carcass. This is where the dragon bone shuffle begins. You loot the corpse. Suddenly you're carrying 75 pounds of calcium and keratin. You're over-encumbered. You turn to your follower. "Lydia," you say, "I have a gift for you." You load them up until they can barely walk. If you are solo, you might have to summon Arvak, the spectral horse from the soul cairn, or gulp down a potion of strength. The walk back to Whiterun becomes a slow, triumphant march of capitalism. The economy of dragon parts is twofold. You can sell them raw, which is quick cash. Alchemists and general merchants will buy them. But the real money, the retirement fund money, comes from crafting. With the Dragon Armor perk, smithing level 100, you can turn these bones into dragon plate or dragon scale armor. A dragon plate armor chest piece requires 3 bones and 2 scales and some leather. Its base value is over 2,000 gold. When you upgrade it at a workbench and enchant it, the value soars into the stratosphere. You're essentially wearing the GDP of a small hold on your chest. This leads us to a fascinating piece of lore regarding the nature of the dragons themselves. The book There Be Dragons describes them not just as animals, but as biological anomalies. Their scales are described as being harder than ebony, yet lightweight enough for flight. But the most interesting tidbit comes from the Atlas of Dragons and the lore surrounding the Dragon War. Dragons are immortal shards of time, children of Akatosh. They don't die in the mortal sense. Their souls are just separated from their bodies. This implies that the bones you are harvesting are, in a way, divine artifacts. You are building a suit of armor out of the crystallized essence of a demigod. It also raises the question, why do they have gold inside them? The community has a few theories. One is the magpie theory, that dragons instinctively swallow shiny objects, which sit in their gullets like gizzard stones. Another, darker theory is that the gold and gems are the remains of the adventurers they ate previously. When you loot a dragon, you're actually recovering the life savings of the poor sod who tried to fight it before you. It adds a grim recycling element to the economy. The fan community often debates the Parthenax dilemma through an economic lens. The Blades ask you to kill Parthenax, the leader of the Greybeards. Morally, many players refuse, but economically, Parthenax is a massive bag of loot sitting on a mountain. Some ruthless players calculate the value of his life against the bones he drops. It's a cold calculus, but Skyrim pushes you toward it. There is also the respawn debate. Technically, dragons are infinite. The game keeps spawning them to ensure you have souls to unlock shouts. This turns Skyrim into a factory farm. You aren't saving the world, you are managing a sustainable population of livestock. You don't want to wipe them out completely, or the supply of bones would dry up. You are an eco-terrorist of the most profitable variety. The sensory details of dragon poaching are intense. The heat of the burning carcass, the sound of the bones rattling in your inventory, a heavy, hollow clatter, the way the skeleton persists in the world. Unlike other corpses that despawn, dragon skeletons often remain for a long time. They become landmarks. Turn left at the pile of bones outside Rorikstead, you tell yourself. You're literally reshaping the geography of the province with your refuse. We must also mention the dragon bone weapons, introduced in the Dawnguard DLC. These are the highest base damage weapons in the game. A dragonbone warhammer is a brutal, jagged instrument of death. Crafting one feels like a primal act. You're taking the tooth of a beast that breathes fire and strapping it to a stick. It sells for thousands. However, selling these high-value items is a challenge. Most merchants only have 750 or 1,000 gold. You walk in with a dragon bone worth 500. You sell 2, and the merchant is broke. This forces you to travel. You become a travelling bone merchant, hitting Solitude, then Riften, then Windhelm, offloading your heavy cargo piece by piece. It's a logistical puzzle. There is a specific joy in the random encounters. A dragon attacks inside a city, say, Solitude. The guards help you kill it. The dragon crashes in the courtyard of the Blue Palace. You loot it in front of the Jarl. It feels like a performance. You're welcome for saving the city, you imply. Now if you'll excuse me, I need to turn this hero's deed into a down payment on a house. The danger, of course, is the ancient dragons and legendary dragons at higher levels. Their breath attacks can one-shot a greedy player who is wearing carry weight gear instead of fire resistance gear. It forces a balance. You have to be strong enough to kill the asset, but empty enough to carry it. Eventually you might build a trophy room. The Hearthfire homes allow you to build taxidermy mounts. Mounting a dragon skull on a pedestal in your entryway is the ultimate flex. It tells every visitor, I didn't just survive the end of the world, I profited from it. But maybe you're tired of the heavy lifting. Dragon bones are heavy, the travel is long, and the merchants are always poor. You want to force the market to bend to your will. You want the merchants to pay you more simply because you asked. You want a face that commands respect, or perhaps a mask that commands a bargain. We're going to fetch a dog, travel to a frozen cave, and claim the face of a Daedric prince. We leave the heavy, blood-soaked business of dragon poaching and turn our attention to the art of the deal. Because let's be honest, lugging 300 pounds of dragon bones halfway across the province only to sell them for pennies on the septim is heartbreaking. You don't just need goods to sell, you need a silver tongue to sell them with. But since we can't all be bards with maxed out charisma stats, we are going to cheat. We're going to find a dog, endure a terrible accent, and acquire the Mask of Clavicus Vile. This chapter of our financial journey begins in Falkreath, the gloomy city nestled in the southern pine forests, famous for its massive graveyard. The guards here will ask you a strange question. Seen a dog out there? It sounds like a radiant quest for a lost puppy. It is in fact the gateway to the most powerful economic headgear in the game. You find the dog, Barbas, on the road, and immediately the tone of your adventure shifts. Barbas isn't just a dog, he's a Daedra in the shape of a dog, and he talks. Specifically, he talks with a thick, inexplicably Brooklyn-esque accent that sounds like he should be driving a taxi in Liberty City rather than sniffing trees in Tamriel. Skyrim is now host to giant flying lizards and two-legged catmen, he quips, and you're surprised by me, a talking dog. Barbas is the other half of the Daedric Prince Clavicus Vile, the Prince of Wishes and Bargains. They are currently having a domestic dispute. Vile has kicked Barbas out, and your job is to reunite them. This involves travelling to Hema's Shame, a cavern infested with vampires who worship Vile. The dungeon crawl is unique because Barbas joins you as an indestructible follower. He's a tank. He tears through vampires while you hang back and loot the dust piles. However, seasoned players know the true horror of this escort mission. Barbas has a collision box the size of a mammoth. He will push you off cliffs. He will nudge you into traps. He will stand in the doorway when you're trying to retreat. It is a test of patience, perhaps designed by Vile himself to see how badly you want the reward. Once you reach the shrine, you meet Clavicus Vile. He manifests as a voice and a statue. He offers you a deal. He wants the rueful axe, a weapon he gave to a wizard to cure his daughter of lycanthropy. By killing her, which is classic Vile humour. You retrieve the axe, and then comes the choice that defines your financial future. Vile tells you to kill Barbas with the axe. If you do, you keep the rueful axe. If you refuse and insist he take the dog back, he grumbles but rewards you with his mask. From a gameplay perspective, this is an IQ test. The rueful axe is arguably one of the worst Daedric artifacts. It has a painfully slow swing speed and a mediocre enchantment. It is vendor trash. The mask, however, is the holy grail of merchants. The Mask of Clavicus Vile is a heavy armour helmet with a unique, horned, metallic face. Its stats are beautiful. Magicka regenerates 5% faster, Speechcraft is increased by 10 points, and most importantly, prices are 20% better. That 20% better is a separate multiplier from your speech skill. It stacks. When you wear this mask, you aren't just charismatic, you're hypnotising the merchants. You walk into a shop looking like a horned demon made of bronze, and the shopkeeper immediately offers you their friends and family discount. It fundamentally changes the math of the game. Let's contextualise the savings. Remember that dragonplate armour we crafted? With the mask, you sell it for 20% more. Remember the Grand Soul gems you're buying? You buy them for 20% less. Over the course of a playthrough, this one item saves and generates hundreds of thousands of gold. It is the only helmet a true tycoon should ever wear in town. There is a fascinating bit of lore regarding the relationship between Clavicus Vile and Barbas. In the book The Vile Truth of Barbas, and through dialogue in other Elder Scrolls games, it is suggested that Barbas is not just a pet. He is the repository of Vile's power, and crucially, his common sense. Clavicus Vile is the id, impulsive, chaotic, prone to making deals that backfire on himself. Barbas is the superego, the restraint. Without Barbas, Vile is diminished and dangerous to himself. By reuniting them, you aren't just saving a dog. You are restoring the cosmic balance of the Prince of Bargains. You're essentially acting as a marriage counsellor for a Daedric entity. The fan community has long debated the immersion-breaking nature of Barbas's voice. Why does a Daedric dog sound like a 1920s New York gangster? Some theories suggest that Daedra choose forms and voices that are comprehensible to mortals, and Vile, being a trickster, finds this specific persona amusing. Others simply blame the voice direction. Regardless, it makes the quest unforgettable. You're trekking through the snow with a dog who sounds like he's about to offer you a deal on a used carriage. The sensory experience of wearing the mask is also worth noting. It covers your character's face entirely. You lose your identity. You become an icon of commerce. When you enter a store in third-person view, you look stoic, unreadable. The merchant can't see your eyes, which perhaps explains why they give you better deals. They're intimidated by the sheer impassive weight of the mask. And there is a delightful irony in the item's function. Speechcraft is usually associated with personality, facial expressions, and charm. Yet, the item that boosts it covers your face with a frozen metal grimace. It suggests that in the world of Skyrim, personality is really just a matter of projecting power and status. The mask projects the status of someone who deals with Daedric princes and wins. You can stack this effect even further. If you wear the mask, a necklace of haggling, which you can enchant yourself, and receive the blessing of Zenithar from a shrine, you can reach the price floor. There is a hard cap in the game's code where merchants cannot sell items for less than 105% of their value and cannot buy them for more than 100%. With the mask, you hit this cap easily. You're trading at near perfect efficiency. You're buying a potion for 10 gold and selling it back for 10 gold. You have beaten the spread. Furthermore, the mask counts as a Daedric artifact for the Oblivion Walker achievement. So by taking the moral high ground and sparing the dog, you're rewarded with wealth, a trophy, and a clear conscience. It's one of the few times in Skyrim where being the good guy is objectively the most profitable option. One small detail often missed is that the mask also provides a magicka regeneration bonus. This makes it surprisingly viable for battle mages. You can cast your transmute spells faster while looking like a minotaur. It's a versatile piece of kit that never leaves your inventory. However, getting the prices right is only half the battle. You can have the best prices in the world, but if the merchant only has 500 gold in their register, you are still capped. You need to increase the liquidity of the market itself. You need to turn every shopkeeper in Skyrim into a major investor. You need to put your own money into the system to get even more out. We leave the Daedric realms and the freezing mountain peaks to return to the heart of civilization. We have the goods, stacks of enchanted daggers, piles of dragon bones, and pockets full of stolen gems. We have the mask that guarantees us the best prices in Tamriel, but we have hit a wall that every high-level dragonborn eventually crashes into. The merchants are broke. It is the most frustrating economic bottleneck in the game. You walk into Belethor's general goods with 10,000 septims worth of loot, and he stares back at you with a paltry 750 gold in his register. You sell 2 swords, and he's tapped out. You're forced to buy his useless junk just to offload your valuable junk, or you have to fast travel to 3 different holds just to empty your backpack. To solve this, we must stop thinking like a scavenger and start thinking like a venture capitalist. We need to open the speech skill tree and climb all the way to level 70 to unlock the investor perk. This perk changes the dialogue options with almost every shopkeeper in the game. Suddenly a new prompt appears, "I'd like to make an investment in your business." It costs you 500 gold. You hand over the coin, a heavy, satisfying clinking sound, and the shopkeeper thanks you. From that moment forward, their permanent gold cap is increased by 500 septims. It doesn't sound like much on paper. 500 gold is 1 potion maybe, but the implication is liquidity. When you combine this with the sheer number of merchants in a city like Solitude or Whiterun, you're effectively raising the gold reserve of the entire city by thousands. But there is one specific investment that defies all logic. It is the GameStop stock of Skyrim. We are talking about the Riverwood Trader. When you invest your 500 gold in Lucan Valerius, the mild-mannered shopkeeper who had his golden claw stolen, something magical happens in the game's code. Due to a well-known bug, or perhaps a divine blessing from Zenithar, Lucan's gold cap doesn't just go up by 500, it skyrockets. After investing, Lucan will often carry over 10,000 gold. Let that sink in. The most powerful merchant in Skyrim isn't the court wizard of the Blue Palace or the fence for the Thieves Guild. It's the guy in the starter village who lives with his sister and complains about bandits. Lucan becomes your personal bank. You can dump an entire dungeon's worth of loot onto his counter in a single transaction. You don't have to travel. You don't have to wait 48 hours. You just go to Riverwood. It transforms the sleepy hamlet into the financial capital of your playthrough. You fast travel in, the chickens cluck, the mill wheel turns, and you conduct high-level asset liquidation next to a pile of firewood. This leads to a fascinating perspective on the Dragonborn's role in the world. We usually view the protagonist as a warrior or a mage, but with the investor perk, you become a philanthropist. You're single-handedly stimulating the economy of a war-torn province. The civil war has ravaged supply lines, the roads are unsafe. Yet, here comes this hero, injecting capital into small family-owned businesses. You're saving the mom-and-pop shops from bankruptcy. There is a deeper layer of mastery if you push the speech skill all the way to level 100. You unlock the Master Trader perk. This gives every merchant in the world an additional 1,000 gold. This stacks with the Investor perk. Now every blacksmith has roughly 2,500 gold. Every alchemist has 2,000. The entire world becomes rich enough to afford you. Lore enthusiasts often debate the realism of the Skyrim economy. The buying game, a skill book found in the Bard's College, suggests that pricing is psychological, but the sheer lack of gold in the province suggests a deflationary spiral caused by the Civil War. The Empire is draining resources, the Stormcloaks are hoarding them. By unlocking these perks, the Dragonborn is essentially acting as a central bank, printing money, or rather unlocking it, to keep commerce flowing. The sensory experience of the Investor run is surprisingly gratifying. You walk into a shop, say, Bits and Pieces in Solitude. The bell chimes, the smell of incense and old wood. You aren't there to sell, you are there to give. I'd like to make an investment, Angeline Morad. Thanks you, her voice filled with genuine gratitude, or at least the same voice actor line you heard 5 minutes ago in Morthal. You feel like a patron of the arts. You're the Medici of the North, and it changes your relationship with the NPCs. Belethor, the sleazy merchant in Whiterun who jokes about selling his sister, suddenly becomes your business partner. Do come back, he sneers. And you do, because you own a stake in his shop. You have a vested interest in his success. You stop stealing his cheese wheels and start protecting him from vampire attacks. If Belethor dies, your investment dies with him. This strategy creates a golden route. You start in Riften, hit the blacksmith and the general store, investing in both. Then Windhelm, then Winterhold. You do a grand tour of Skyrim, dropping bags of gold like Johnny Appleseed planting trees. By the time you finish, you have created a network of high-capital merchants tailored to your selling needs. It also solves the fence problem. Usually you need the Thieves Guild fences to sell stolen goods. But with the fence perk, level 90 speech, which usually comes along the way to Master Trader, every merchant you have invested in becomes a fence. You can sell stolen goods to anyone. Imagine the freedom. You steal a diamond from the Jarl of Whiterun, walk down the stairs to the drunken huntsman, and sell it to the archer supply guy because you invested in his shop last week. The black market ceases to be a market. It just becomes the market. The distinction between legal and illegal goods evaporates. You have corrupted the entire system with your coin. There is a funny community observation about the source of the merchant's new gold. Where does Lucan get that 10,000 gold after you give him 500? Did he bet it on a hawker fight and win big? Did he uncover a buried treasure under his floorboards? The game never explains it. It just accepts that money begets money. The Investor perk also encourages you to visit the smaller settlements. Morthal, Falkreath, Dawnstar. Usually you skip these towns because the merchants are poor. But once you invest, the blacksmith in Falkreath becomes just as viable as Yorland Greymane. It revitalizes the forgotten corners of the map. You find yourself spending time in the misty swamps of Jarlmarch, simply because the alchemist there has a fat purse waiting for you. Eventually, you reach a point where gold becomes a high score rather than a resource. You have 500,000 septims. There is nothing left to buy. You own every house, every spell, every weapon. But you keep investing. Why? Because it's about control. It's about walking into a shop and knowing that the only reason the lights are on is because of you. But perhaps you want to make your money in a way that feels more martial. Investing is for peacetime. And Skyrim is at war. There are battles raging across the province, and where there is war, there is salvage. There is a way to turn the Civil War questline into a massive profit engine, provided you aren't squeamish about looting the brave dead. We leave the polite exchanges of the marketplace and the scratching of quills on ledgers. The air grows thick with smoke, and the sound of commerce is replaced by the clash of steel and the roar of catapults. Skyrim is a province torn apart by civil war, brother fighting brother, Imperial against Stormcloak. To the Patriot, this is a tragedy. To the Dragonborn with an empty coin purse, it is a harvest. We are talking about Civil War profiteering. The Civil War questline is often criticised for being repetitive. Capture a fort, report to the general, repeat. But if you look closely at the mechanics of these battles, you will see a conveyor belt of high-value loot. Here is the reality of the battlefield. When you assault a fort, be it Fort Greenwall or Fort Sungard, the game spawns waves of soldiers. Unlike bandits who often wear leather or fur armour, which is worthless, the officers and higher-ranking soldiers in the Civil War wear steel plate, Imperial heavy, or officer armours. These are mid to high-tier sets with significant gold value. The strategy is simple. The vacuum cleaner method. You enter the battle. You let the soldiers fight. When an enemy falls, you're there before the body hits the ground. You strip them of their cuirass, their helmet, their shield, and their weapons. You're fighting while over-encumbered, waddling through the melee like a heavily armoured duck. But it doesn't matter because your follower is there to act as a pack mule. Lydia, take this Imperial officer's helmet. Lydia, take this Stormcloak officer's bracers. By the end of a single fort siege, you can walk away with 20 sets of armour and dozens of steel weapons. The weight-to-value ratio of a steel plate armour is excellent. It's heavy, yes, but it sells for hundreds of septims. A single battle can net you 3,000 to 5,000 gold in raw assets. But the true profiteering comes from the camp raiding strategy. Scattered across Skyrim are the military camps of the opposing factions. Each camp has a quartermaster, a merchant who sells weapons and armour. If you are a member of the Imperial Legion, you can walk into a Stormcloak camp. They will tell you to leave. You're not welcome here, but if you don't leave, they attack. And here is the trick. The camp commanders are often marked as essential NPCs, they can't die, until the war is over. This sounds annoying, but it's actually an infinite combat training loop. You can beat them down to their knees, let them stand up and beat them down again, leveling your one-handed or destruction skill. However, the soldiers around them are not essential. They are respawning sources of loot. You can treat these camps as resource nodes. You raid the camp, kill the soldiers, loot the chests, which always contain gold and leveled gear, and leave the commander groaning in the mud. Then you fast travel away, wait a few days, and do it again. It is a grim, endless war of attrition where you are the only winner. There is a fascinating piece of lore regarding the economics of the war itself. The Empire is funded by the Ruby Throne in Cyrodiil, implying deep pockets and standardized equipment. The Stormcloaks are funded by local Jarls and private donations, like the Silverbloods in Markarth. This explains why Stormcloak gear is often more rugged and varied, while Imperial gear is uniform. By looting and selling Imperial gear to Stormcloak blacksmiths, and vice versa, the Dragonborn is essentially facilitating an arms trade, recycling the enemy's steel against them. The fan community often jokes about the naked war. Because you loot the bodies, you leave a trail of underwear-clad corpses in your wake. It adds a surreal, humiliating element to the conflict. You aren't just defeating the enemy, you're stripping them of their dignity and their resale value. General Tullius shouts, "For the Empire," while you are busy calculating the resale value of his lieutenant's boots. The sensory experience of the battlefield is chaotic. The music is bombastic, the Sons of Skyrim theme swelling. Arrows whistle past your head. But amidst the glory, there is the mundane sound of the inventory menu opening and closing. Click, swipe, equip. You are managing spreadsheets in the middle of a slaughter. Also, consider the horses. During these battles, horses often die. Horse hides are valuable for crafting leather, and horse meat is, well, it's food. It's a brutal detail, but in war nothing goes to waste. And let's not forget the Jagged Crown quest. Early in the war, you are sent to retrieve this legendary artifact. It's a unique heavy helmet. You're supposed to give it to Ulfric or Tullius. However, you can use the reverse pickpocket trick to give it to Ryloth or Hadvar during the quest, then finish the quest, and then pickpocket it back from them later. You get to keep the crown and finish the quest. The crown itself isn't worth a huge amount of gold, but it looks incredible and has high armor rating. It's a trophy of your manipulation of the war effort. The Civil War also opens up the Thane titles in every hold. Becoming a Thane isn't just an honour, it comes with a weapon, the Blade of Whiterun, Axe of Eastmarch, etc. These are usually levelled enchanted weapons. If you wait until you are a high level to finish the war, these rewards are powerful and valuable. You're collecting a royal armoury as payment for your mercenary work. Ultimately, this method teaches you that instability is profitable. A peaceful Skyrim is a Skyrim with stagnant markets. A Skyrim at war is a Skyrim hungry for steel, where bodies are plentiful and guards are too busy to check your pockets. You become a scavenger of history, picking the gold teeth out of the mouth of the Third Era. But all wars must end, and all adventurers eventually grow tired of the noise, the clatter of steel, the shouting of men, the roar of dragons. It all becomes too much. You want one final score, a treasure so vast, so legendary, that it allows you to retire. You want to follow a map to a pirate's hoard on a distant island. We're going to Solstheim. We're going to find the treasure of Haknir Deathbrand. We leave the blood-soaked fields of the Civil War and the bustling markets of the mainland. We board a ship, the Northern Maiden, and sail through the grey, ash-choked waters of the Sea of Ghosts. Our destination is Solstheim, an island that sits on the border between Skyrim and Morrowind. It is a strange alien place, covered in volcanic ash and giant mushrooms. But we aren't here for the scenery. We're here for the final crowning jewel of our economic conquest, the Deathbrand treasure. This isn't just a quest, it is a pirate legend come to life. It begins with a book, Deathbrand, found in various locations on Solstheim, or by killing a specific pirate captain. The book tells the tale of Haknir Deathbrand, a legendary Nord pirate king who was so feared that, on his deathbed, he cursed his treasure so that only a warrior who could best his spirit would claim it. 100 suits of armour for 100 gold coins, the legend asks. No. Deathbrand's armour is unique. The hunt takes you all over the island. You aren't following a quest marker to a single chest. You are deciphering a map that leads you to 4 separate ancient chests buried in the ash. Each chest contains a piece of the Deathbrand armour set: helm, armour, gauntlets, and boots. Let's talk about the value. This is, hands down, the best light armour set in the game for a dual-wielding character. Its enchantments are staggering. The armour increases your carrying capacity, perfect for hoarding. The boots increase your stamina. The gauntlets increase your one-handed damage. But the kicker is the Deathbrand Instinct set bonus. When you wear all 4 pieces, you get a massive armour rating boost and water breathing. Okay, water breathing is situational, but the armour rating allows this light armour to rival Daedric heavy armour, but the real treasure isn't the armour, it's the gold. The final stage of the quest leads you to Goldenhills Barrow. You need the ancient Nordic pickaxe to break through the Stalrim sealing the entrance. Inside, you find a room that is literal fan service for anyone who loves loot. It is a treasure room. Piles of gold coins lie on the floor, not in containers, loose piles that you can scoop up. There are chests filled with gems, jewellery and enchanted weapons. It is estimated that the Goldenhills Barrow haul ranges from 5,000 to 8,000 gold in raw coin, plus another 5,000 to 10,000 gold in resellable items. It is the single largest concentration of wealth in one room in the entire game. And then you face him, the ghost of Haknir Deathbrand. He is a formidable boss, wielding 2 legendary scimitars, Blood Scythe and Soul Render. These swords are treasures in themselves. When dual-wielded, they absorb health and magicka and lower the enemy's armour. They are the ultimate pirate weapons. Defeating Haknir feels like the end of an era. You stand over his spectral remains, the room glittering with gold, holding the swords of a pirate king. You have bested the legend. You have claimed the hoard. This quest taps into a primal fantasy, the treasure hunt. It's not about saving the world from Alduin or Miraak. It's about X marking the spot. It's about reading a map, digging in the dirt and finding a box of gold. It's pure, unadulterated adventure. Lore-wise, Haknir Deathbrand is a fascinating figure. He represents the chaotic maritime history of the Nords, the age of reavers and sea kings that predates the civilized empire. His treasure is the accumulation of a lifetime of plunder. By taking it, the Dragonborn is inheriting that legacy. You are the new king of the Sea of Ghosts, The sensory details of Solstheim add to the atmosphere, the crunch of ash under your boots, the strange alien cries of the Netch floating nearby. The music, a remix of the Morrowind theme, is nostalgic and melancholic. It feels like you're at the end of the world, and in Goldenhills Barrow, the silence is profound, broken only by the clinking of gold as you sweep it into your pockets. Once you leave the barrow, you're done. You have the armour, you have the swords, you have the gold. You stand on the coast of Solstheim, looking back towards Skyrim. You are the master of alchemy, the lord of enchanting, the guild master of thieves, the listener of assassins and the heir to a pirate empire. You have broken the economy. You have turned the harsh province of Skyrim into your personal bank account. You realise that you don't need to grind anymore. You don't need to chop wood. You don't need to loot every single iron dagger from a bandit. You have achieved financial nirvana. You can finally play the game, or you can just retire, buy a manor, display your treasures, sit by the fire and watch the snow fall. The fire in the hearth has burned down to glowing embers, casting long, soft shadows across the room. Outside, the wind of Solstheim, or perhaps the wind of Winterhold, or Whiterun, wherever you have chosen to rest, whispers against the stone walls, a gentle, rhythmic, hushing sound. The heavy clanking of gold coins, the sharp ring of the smith's hammer, the roar of the dragon, all of it fades into the distance, becoming nothing more than a memory, a story told in the quiet of the night. We have travelled a long road together tonight, from the humble fields of wheat and the giants' camps to the deepest Dwemer ruins and the secret vaults of the Khajiit. We have turned iron into gold, silence into profit, and chaos into a fortune. You have learned the secrets of the economy, the tricks of the trade, the hidden paths that turn a struggle for survival into a life of abundance. You have done the work, you have earned the rest. Close your inventory now, let the weight of the armour fall from your shoulders, let the map roll up and be put away. There are no more quests to track, no more merchants to haggle with, no more dragons to chase. The markets are closed, the guards are changing shifts. The world is slowing down, breathing out, settling into the stillness of the dark. Imagine your character, the Dragonborn, finally stepping through the door of their home. They hang up the mask of Clavica's vial. They place the Deathbrand swords on the rack. They sit in a sturdy wooden chair by the fire, the warmth seeping into their bones. The house is safe, the chest is full, the future is secure. And as they drift into sleep, so too do we. The adventure will always be there, waiting for you when you wake. But for now, the ledger is balanced, the profit is secured, the story is told. Sweet dreams.